To break that generational curse, there has to be a level of awareness that takes place.
Anytime that I say things like that in front of my family, that I did a tarot reading, it's seen as I'm welcoming the devil.
How dare I?
Growing up in a Hispanic household, there was so much shame when it came to seeing the supernatural.
When you grow up in Colombia, your mentality is way different than here. We're way more advanced mentally.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rich and Soul podcast. I'm your host, Nati Restrepo, and today I'm so freaking excited because I'm bringing on my really special friend. I had the opportunity of working with this individual. You guys might see her on social media. She has started this incredible experience, which is Diaries of a Healing Latina. Jamie Mejía, I'm so happy you're here. Thank you for being here. How are you feeling?
Excited and a little bit nervous.
I know you guys see her on social media and you're like, there's no way that she's this
Shy.
No, I don't. I feel like people have a really hard time really seeing that.
I know. A lot of people tell me that, but then when they meet me, they're like, why are you shy? You're very outgoing. You like speak your mind. And I'm like, yeah, but it's me by myself.
We were just talking behind the scenes and like, I think this is something that a lot of, you're a content creator and you're doing such an incredible job at creating really beautiful material. We were talking about it behind the scenes. I think like through your content, you're really expressing yourself in such a professional manner too. Like it's like an unbelievable thing to see, considering I used to work with Jamie. I spent a few years working with Jamie. She was in finance. Okay. I'll never forget the first time that I met you. You were like this little, like you were in the behind of the meeting. Like, I'm here.
Always hiding.
Always hiding. And I think when I met you, when I actually got the opportunity to talk to you, you were like really wild. And I was like, wait, who's this? Who is this human? Like she's not shy at all. But I think it's really interesting that we're starting the podcast talking like this because you actually came to House of Vibration when we first launched it.
Yes.
And I don't know if you know, but the way that we started House of Vibration, it was because I was seeing that there was a huge gap between spirituality and business. Like, obviously we helped a lot of high performers and we helped a lot of successful people. And it was a really beautiful thing to help people with their money. But what I was seeing was that they were struggling the most was with their spirituality, was within their intimate relationships. And I felt like at work, I was always too like hippie-ish, right? It was like I couldn't ever really truly express myself. Like I was always kind of like, let me speak this in the language of the.
It was like, well, the way that I say it, it's more of like a mechanical way.
The robotic way?
Robotic.
There
was like no expressions, no feelings that were really expressed. And you felt like it was wrong for you to even express your feelings. So every time you felt overwhelmed, stressed out, or you felt like your job was in jeopardy, everyone would run to Nati and be like, this is how I feel. Like, what do you think? Or what do you know?
Which is crazy because that's, I thought for a long time that I had put this part away from me in terms of like the healer role, right? I always, since I was little, and you actually went to Catholic school too.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. And you also were a crazy teenager like me. So it's funny how all of that has a huge influence because today we're talking about being Hispanic and all the things you kind of got to break. So if you're Latina or if you are a child of an immigrant, you're going to want to stick through this because we're going to get deep into that work. So it's interesting because when I was there, I was like, I thought that I was pushing aside that side of me, that part of me that was like investing in myself spiritually. I felt like I was disowning my younger self, little Nati, soul rebel, for a really long time. Mm-hmm. And then I realized how I really was serving my medicine throughout those years there. Like even you saying that right now, like, oh no, Nati, like you would come to my desk and be like, I'm freaking out.
Yes. Every time I would do anything wrong or the way that I would speak to a certain person, I would always run to you because I didn't know who else to run to. And I felt like I couldn't trust anyone else. And the only person that I truly trusted was you. And you helped me through that period of my time, because that period of my time was a little traumatic in a way, but I will forever be grateful for that period of my time.
I feel the same. I feel like I could not have done all of this if it wasn't for what I learned there. So many beautiful moments. But the best part is meeting someone like you.
For
sure.
Like
this bond that we have, like we see each other and we're like, it's no one gets it. It's like the person that you go to jail with, like, like your jailmate, I think that's the beauty of like coworkers and stuff like that. But I think it's so interesting because when I started the House of Vibration, I was like, okay, I've helped so many business owners. I've helped a lot of people build really successful businesses. Okay, I've trained people. I've made them into like top performers and like we helped them make money. But I was like, how can I create something that I feel like merges those two worlds together? And so when I opened up the studio in Hollandale, you were one of the first guests that came in, which is now, can you believe that was like almost 2.5 years ago? That's about to be 3 years.
I can't believe that. I felt like it was just last year.
Right?
Yeah.
And so the interesting part is that, Jamie, the other day, with the series of the Diaries of a Healing Latina, I was like, Jamie, like we should, do a second part where you come into the studio and we do your aura analysis again. And she replied back to me with a voice memo. And she was like, no, Nathy, like that would be amazing because I feel, so talk to me about that.
So I didn't know, but apparently I used to always just reply through text. I would never send voice notes. And this time I responded with a voice note. And when I was telling you, one of the things that I mentioned was when I went to the studio and I did my aura reading, one of the things that popped up was my throat chakra and it was blocked. And I remember one of the things that you said, you go to yoga, why don't you just hum when you have to hum? And then that way you can start loosening up your throat chakra. And ever since that, it stayed in my mind. And every time I go to yoga, I do the chants. I hum, I do everything. And it's made it easier for me to speak, especially online. I could say that. And then years later, I got my cards read. And so when I did this, they told me the same thing. Your throat is blocked. You need to open it up. And I'm like, but what do you mean? Like, I don't understand. And my little Etsy witch, she was like, you need to start speaking more on social media because you have the type of personality that you influence people. It's not you copying other people. It's you influencing others. And when she said that, you came to mind and I was like, wait, there's no way. This is the second time I hear this. So at that moment, that week, I focused on just solely creating content, speaking. And one of my videos went viral. And I was like, wait, what the heck? And then I started speaking more about my feelings, like turning 30, how difficult it was for me to turn 30. And a lot of women started resonating with what I had mentioned. Then I did another video where I spoke on growing up in a Hispanic household. And I can't remember exactly, but that one blew up as well. And that's what basically led me to Diaries of a Healing Latina, because I was like, wait, like there's a gap right here that we're missing. And all of that just came from one aura reading, my throat. And ever since then, it's been history.
I wonder if I can find your aura analysis back then. And then we're going to do another one so we can show it too, to see like the process and see how it's looking now. But it's so crazy because this morning I was thinking about it too. I was like, man, if all of us could kind of truly tap into that painful part, that part that we're hiding. It's so interesting. So I have a lot of clients, believe it or not, that are sex workers, okay? Strippers, OnlyFans, etc. And they're so tapped in. It's so crazy. Like, they're more tapped in than the majority of my clients. And I think it's because they're aware that their essence is being shared so much, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they try to really protect it. They would try to really like all right, let me take care of my spiritual hygiene, which is super interesting. And one of the things that I always find is that, you know, a lot of them are also on social media trying to maybe expand on another avenue, right? Maybe they're models, maybe they're, you know, I have energy healers, ones that are also very gifted. And one of the biggest things that I tell them is, hey, like, the day that you are able to tap into your actual voice, that is the day that you're going to really make it. Because when you can show that vulnerability, that's what people want to see. They want to see you, they want to hear your story, and they want to see how you overcome it. That is how you actually become magnetic, because you have something that they don't have, right? They're like, wow, that story belongs to her specifically, and I can't have that story, but I've walked through something similar, and she's overcoming it by using this modality. So I remember sitting down with you and you were just starting kind of like your social media career, and I was like, Jamie, the moment that you start using your voice, that is the day that you're going to make it. So I love seeing you sharing that, but it's also so funny. So I just want to say that you started the whole Etsy witch thing, right?
No.
No? Okay.
So there's one person in particular. Her name is Jasmine.
Uh-huh.
So she posted, she was getting married. She paid an Etsy witch to have a beautiful wedding day. That went viral. And people were a little like skeptical. Skeptical.
Mm-hmm.
They were skeptical on actually getting an Etsy witch. And me being all over TikTok, I was like, wait, I want to try this out. So I found a person. I paid, I think it was like $15 to do just a general reading, a love reading. And I liked her.
She was good.
She was really good. She mentioned things that only that person and I knew. And that's how I knew it's real. So then I paid another $15 and I did another reading, which was like my career, my health, and then my love life. And that went more in depth. And so I posted that on social media, on TikTok, and that blew up. And it was crazy to me because, well, currently I have like 2 battles going on in that video. Uh-huh. One, because I'm wearing a cross. And so one of them is saying, like, how could you be a Christian and pay a tarot reader when you have God? And then the other side is, well, that's still part of like religion. Like, you shouldn't judge people because they're doing that. And so that grew even bigger. Yeah. And until this day is still producing. So someone from a magazine, I can't remember the website now, but they reached out to me. They wanted to interview me, and I did a whole interview. I'm like in this whole like section of their magazine and everything.
That's what people don't realize. It's like the more that you hate my video, the more contradicting it is, the more you're going to actually help me.
Yeah.
Right? It's so interesting because when I started House of Vibration, we were talking about this behind the scenes. And I won't go too in depth into it, but you know, we were talking about how a lot of people that I know, that we know are, you know, very religious. And you know, and we were kind of like talking about how that happened and stuff. And it was interesting because I was expressing to you how I've always encouraged people around me to find a safe haven in religion and community, because I think it serves such a beautiful purpose, especially when people are so alone. Yeah. That's what community does. That's what you find in church, right? And I think the problem really lies in the power players that are in religion, right? The leaders are usually the people who manipulate the communities to go against others. Yeah. And I talk about this a lot, but for a long time, I always went to a Christian church. I wouldn't say that I'm Christian. I like going to a temple. I like going to a mall. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I am someone who is very rich in information. I love to bury myself I'll read the Quran. Like, I love information and I love learning. And I think every single human being holds such a beautiful message. And it was interesting because when I started House of Vibration, we would talk about the aura analysis and we would do, the Reiki and stuff like that. I started to get so much hate about, my profession and what I was dedicating myself to. And I was like, wait, I thought we were all on the same page. Wait a minute. Like, you think that I'm the enemy? And so it was super heartbreaking, I think, to experience that, especially with, the modalities that we all have access to and how our big purpose really truly should be to the purpose is love, right? We all want to love each other. But why am I getting judged by my brothers and sisters? Like, wait, what? I thought, and so it's so crazy that you're saying that. I want to like wrap into like being Hispanic, right? I remember again starting this until this day. I have a lot of people in my family who don't want to support me because they say that I'm practicing something that is not of Jesus or that is not of love or that's whatever is not part of their religion. I even had somebody like recently a few months ago, I had like an aunt come from Colombia and she like came on the property and she was like, oh my gosh, you have the Virgin Mary? And I was like, yeah. She's like, I didn't know you believed in the Virgin Mary. I'm like, yeah, I believe in the Virgin Mary and I also believe in Krishna. I'm like, it's not just one thing. She's like, oh, I thought that you were like not into anything, none of that stuff. I'm like, wait, what? So I'm interested to know, like, have you experienced that in your household? You grew up, you're Colombian too, right? Talk to me about your any judgments that you've kind of received being Latina and being being woke, because you woke, girl.
Well, I love all types of religion. I'm very open-minded when it comes to that. Like, for example, in the Hindu religion, my favorite god is Ganesh. And anytime that I say things like that in front of my family or that I did a tarot reading, it's seen as I'm welcoming the devil. How dare I? How could you ever do something like that? Like, all the demons are walking in this house because of you. Now we have to cleanse this house. And it's like, relax. Like, it's not that deep. It's not that serious. If you believe in God, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
I don't think a religion makes you. And it's been a lot of years. My stepmom's side of the family, they're Christian. And basically, I grew up in a Christian church. And I used to go all the time. Until one time, I went with my grandmother and the lady, the pastor's wife, she asked my grandma if she had given a donation. And my grandma said, yes, I gave $5. And the lady in front of me said, well, how come you couldn't give more? Doesn't your daughter live in that building? Like my stepmom? She's rich. Go ask her for money and give more money to the church. And I remember that day I was so furious.
Yeah.
Because how dare you ask for more money, or how dare you, like, whatever you give is because es lo que te crece en el corazón.
Yeah.
And ever since then, I never stepped foot into a church. I was so like heartbroken after that because I wanted to be a Christian. And the judgment was insane. And every time we would walk out of church, I always overheard all the moms and all the grandmas criticizing another person. And to me, that was like horrific because how do you just preach to the Lord, ask for forgiveness, and here you are sinning again? So
it's hard. It's a tough thing. And it sucks because it's like it shouldn't take away from us going into God's home.
Yeah.
You know?
And then my mom's side is Catholic, which they're more calm.
Yeah.
It's a lot calmer. But I feel like I'm in a constant battle of what religion are you? Are you Christian or are you Catholic? And whatever I say, either family is going to take it the wrong way. And so I always tell everyone, I don't have a religion. I just believe in God. I thank God every single morning for waking up, and that's my religion. Like, that's pretty much it.
Yes. It's such a delicate thing. It's really I've experienced it so intensely this year. I felt more judged than ever by different religious groups when in fact I was always like preaching about them. I was always like, go to the church. I'm like, whatever church you want to, go to it. And then the past, year, it's been like, oh my gosh, wait, actually, guys, like, hold up, I don't know where you should go. Hey, I have an idea. Why don't we all sit together right now and we give thanks and we each share a gem of some knowledge and some wisdom that you have benefited and learned from the oppression of your parents, from the oppression of all the religious leaders that you have actually been imprinted by. And we share it because each of us have such a beautiful gift to share. And I think there is some thin lines that we sometimes cross and play with, but that's the beauty of being human. Like the polarity that we all experience, a duality that all of us that exists between all. I'm not God. Like me, you are not. Like if for a moment I try to be God and be perfect and say that the way that they're operating is wrong, then I would explode. I would absolutely explode. We're not meant to be this like perfect human being.
Exactly. Or judge others. Like, who are we to judge others? And that's my biggest pet peeve. That's why that's one of the topics that anytime I speak to my family about it, it's like a debate.
Yeah.
And if I say that I'm not Christian, God, my grandma comes out with the Bible. Mija, hay que leer la Biblia ya. Este es el versículo de Dios, por favor. Get in your knees and I have to like pray for you. I have to,
Yeah.
My grandma takes out this little bottle. So she has like her own holy water.
Oh, me too, girl.
But it's oil with perfume. And then she's like, esto te va a sanar y te va a abrir la mente. And I'm like, it's not going to change my mind. I'm not going to change my mind. Like, I don't want to be Christian. And that's just that.
Okay, we started off the podcast strong. We love you. We love you all, though. We love you all, truly, truly. No, it's just, it is hard. It's such
a sensitive topic.
It's so sensitive. It's so sensitive. Yeah, even with like holy water. So just so what I do is like, because I love the Bible. I love the Bible. I learn from the Bible so much. Again, it's not the only book that I read, right? There's many esoteric books that I absolutely love. The Bible I would consider to be an esoteric book. And so what do? I take my holy water and I infuse it, right, with my Florida water. It's so funny. My partner's like, hey, maybe you should put away the Florida water in the house. And I'm like, why? He's like, like it might look a little bit weird, if someone's like walking by and you have like this beautiful like container with like flowers and like it's like this blue water. And I'm like, it's just holy water. It's like, maybe we should put it away. It's like, okay, whatever. But I think that that's something that every girl who's on their healing journey, especially Latinas. Actually, I see this a lot also with the very strict Catholics, the Russian Catholics. What are they called? There's a name for that. There's a group of Russians that
Protestants.
Yes. Is it the Protestants? Yeah. It's really beautiful way that they practice Catholicism. It's beautiful. Yeah, or behind the scenes is looking for it, but but they also struggle with this too, believe it or not. Okay, I want to ask you about you posted a video the other day about turning 30. Congratulations on turning 30. You're 30?
31.
31. Okay, yeah, cuz I'm like, wait. I'm like, girl, you that much younger than me? No, okay, so 31, you turned 31. And one of the biggest things that you talked about was like the typical conversation, like every Hispanic girl experiences from the age of like 12 until the rest of their life is at the family dinner. Like, did you get married? Where's your husband? Where's your boyfriend? You gained weight, da 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 da. And you were talking about like the experiences of like turning 31 years old and kind of being faced again with those picking between your career and
Hmm.
being married. Talk to me about that journey that you kind of are feeling right now on this yendo al tercer escalón.
It was actually really hard for me to turn
Yeah.
30. Yeah, I actually got a little depressed right when I turned 30 because my family, well, there's one side of the family, they wanted me to have a boyfriend, and they introduced me to a lot of people every time I would go to Colombia.
Oh, they introduce you when you go over there?
Yeah.
At least they have someone for you that they want to introduce you to.
Girl.
They're never.
Mm-mm.
Do they want you to marry like
Yes.
social in a certain social class?
Yes. So the people that they've introduced, the men, are usually doctors or lawyers and very well known in Colombia. And
You just like hit my heart there. Why are Colombians this way? Like they're living as if like they were in like the 1950s.
exactly.
Arranged. No, I can't even tell you. And they'll want to marry you with a third cousin too.
Anyone. Let me just say anyone. This last time that I went to Colombia, I came back and I was filled with so much anxiety because every day I heard from my family, like, you're already turning 31 or 32, like, you're late, you need to start having kids soon, like, how can you not have kids, or are you not thinking about it, like, what's wrong, what's going on in your mind? And it's like, nothing's wrong, first off. Second of all, I felt like my entire 20s, I focused on wanting to be in a relationship so much that I kept attracting all of these emotionally unavailable men.
Mm.
And I just kept going downhill. And it was not because a man's fault, it was my fault because I was emotionally unavailable and I didn't want to accept it, because ever since I was a child, it's, you have to find your soulmate in your 20s, get married from the ages of 27 to 29, and in your 30s, start producing kids. And that was my mentality back then. It was always like, I have to get married, I have to get married, I have to find my soulmate. Once I realized that I was emotionally unavailable, I quit dating completely. And I started centering the focus on myself and being a lot more selfish.
So the common thing, like being that my parents kind of broke those generational curses with, to say, those blockages. So something that I recently found out in my family was, so I think you know this, but my dad's from Cartagena. So in Cartagena, we see the majority of the population is either super, super, super white, or they're from Afro-Indigenous, the descent.
Mm-hmm.
And something really interesting that we found out was that I recently did my DNA test. And in the DNA test, it came back that I was 35% Nigerian, like, descent. Okay.
Oh.
And so when I did it, it was interesting because if you look at like all my mom's family, they're all super white, blue eyes, blonde, Scandinavian pretty much looking. And so my dad's side, we all kind of have like, light eyes, but you can tell there's a little bit more sauce in there. And so when I did, it was interesting because we ended up finding out that my grandmother was the daughter of a slave owner, in a sense, and a slave girl, and in Cartagena, and she was ripped away from her family, from her mother, and so she felt that blockage, I think, from being able to connect to that side of her. And so I think it's really interesting. You made that video the other day about you receiving that judgment and that neglect. Talk to me about that. And being Colombian again, because
Yeah, being Colombian, I'm sorry, it's a little tough.
it's tough.
It's
We're
tough.
magical, but yeah.
Yeah. Um, okay. So one side of my family is white. The other side of my family is not. And I grew up mainly with the white side of my family, but they're Colombian, by the way. They're Colombian.
Yeah, when we say white Colombian, like white
Colombian.
Hispanic, white Latino.
Because someone, when I made that video, took it as my family members were American white.
That's actually like a whole other subject.
Yeah,
we can get into.
But in the Hispanic culture, there's two differences. So when my mom... Cut that off.
Okay.
Okay.
Can we cut really quickly? I'm going to change this car.
Being Colombian, and I think because we have so many different backgrounds, we have a lot of Lebanese culture, we have a lot of Afro descent, we have a lot of, natives, and then we have the freaking Spaniards that came in, the Portuguese. I think that's why Colombia experiences a lot of racism, even though they're not like super out there talking about it. But did you experience any discrimination in your family? And I think you were talking about it in a video. So tell me more about that.
So the discrimination that I felt was with one side of my family. They were Colombian white. My other side of the family, they're a little bit more mixed. Even though they're half white, half black, they still didn't want me to be born. And they didn't want me to be born because they knew that I wouldn't be white. And they wanted to keep basically the line of the family to be fully white. And even though a lot of people don't talk about it, that still exists until today's date.
Yeah.
And this person, they would bully me. They would call me nicknames. They rejected me, obviously. And there were moments where I experienced physical pain as well through it all, because they had so much resentment and so much hatred towards one person in my family, and then me not being white.
Wow. Yeah.
And I never understood why. I never understood why until years later. I was around 15, 16, my godmother. Right before she passed, she was like, listen, before I pass, I have to tell you everything. And I freaked out because I'm like, why are you telling me this?
Yeah.
And she knew that she was passing away. So once we started speaking, she told me that this one person didn't want me to be born. And a bunch of other stuff. So at that moment, I pieced every single puzzle together, and I understood why they never accepted me, why I always felt rejected, why I always questioned, how come this person's not showing me love? How come this person's not showing me compassion?
It was someone close to you.
Very close, yeah. And they showed everyone else the love and the compassion that I needed, but they always left me out. I was like the black sheep,
literally,
of the entire group. And everything made sense after that. Once I found out, I cut this person completely out of my life. And one of my parents couldn't accept it because they kept pushing me to forgive them and to accept them. And I couldn't. I couldn't because it was already so much pain that that person made me go through. There was no way for me to go back, and I couldn't forgive them. And especially knowing what I know now, there was no way. Like, you went above and beyond. Not only wanted for me to be aborted, but you went somewhere to cast a spell to wish my parents bad luck or like something wrong. So it was like a whole...
That is, talk about a novela.
Yeah.
That is the typical, like, why is that such a normal thing in a Hispanic household? But remember, they're super Christian. So, no
they're
way.
very religious. They're very religious.
But they will go to una bruja and try to cast una maldición.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would you look at that?
Ever since then, this person to me, like I always say, when I cut someone out of my life, I always say they're dead to me. this person ever since then has been dead to me.
Well, I think it's really interesting though, because before we were rolling, we did like a little break, and you said something about what she experienced, like why it was that she was this way. And in a sense, I think that's you forgiving her. By you bringing awareness and consciousness to why it is that she is that way, that is a way for you to forgive her. Not for her, but for you and your own relationships with your daughter and your granddaughter, right? It's like, to break that generational curse, there has to be a level of awareness that takes place.
Mm-hmm.
You were telling me that she herself is half Afro, right?
Half Afro, yeah. And that was the most shocking moment, because it's like, why are you not accepting me? And
if you even like, have you ever been to Palenque?
No.
In Cartagena? So Jamie is from relatively a close part of Colombia. You're from Barranquilla and from Cartagena, which is like literally, it's like saying Broward County and Miami-Dade.
Yeah.
So it's the same. I can imagine that we share the same similar ancestors.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really study like the Afro-Caribbeans that came in, so Colombia's Cartagena was the biggest port export for the slaves that came from, I believe, Nigeria. And then from there, they would go and they would transport them to Venezuela, to the Americas, right? To the US. But something really interesting is that next time you go to Cartagena, you need to go to Palenque. So Palenque was basically the only place in Latin America, if I'm not mistaken, where they were allowed to continue to practice their religion.
Mm.
So it's like the only little preserve that you have. So now me and you, I mean, I think it's like really interesting. Like I think we're experiencing the same thing then.
Yeah.
Because
like our stories are very similar in a way.
Yeah, because I mean, you just found this part out. I just found this part out, which is really interesting. I'm working on a docuseries where we're going to go to Palenque, and we're going to bring a little bit more awareness of that occult spirituality that has been kind of like shunned away for a really long time.
But I don't really know the religion or the spirituality that they practice.
So the best way to put it is, it's basically the same thing that a santero.
Okay.
It's very similar. Of course, just like every religion, there's good and there's bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's what you do with it. So like, that's why I want to really do a deep dive on what is it that's happening there. But like, what were they shunned away from, right? Because when you start to study all of these other occult religions, like even los santeros, right? When you look at the saints that they would use, it wasn't necessarily that they were the same saints in Catholicism. It's just that they would use that as a representation to identify that deity that they were praying to. And so that they wouldn't get in trouble, they would use San Antonio, let's say, or they would use San Lázaro. But it wasn't really San Lázaro. It was still their deity, but they would use it to kind of disguise it. Because it's like, imagine, if right now we were forced to, they were like, well, I guess we're different because we are like all over the place and we're studying every freaking religion possible. But let's say there was something that we felt super close to our practice and they tried to take it away from us, right?
Yeah.
And so in order for us to kind of keep it alive, we would pretend that it's the root Christianity, but behind the scenes, we're still practicing those things that our grandparents kind of passed on to us.
So you mentioned that you had experienced supernatural activity in Cartagena. What was that like?
So I think that my grandma, that I'm telling you about,
Mm-hmm.
I definitely inherited that witchiness from her.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, she's super Catholic. Like, if she would have had access to the type of things that we have now, she would have been able to develop herself a lot better. But since she was young, she always was able to like kind of like predict really tragic situations that would happen through her dreams. And so every time that I was like united with her, there was always really supernatural things that would happen. But one of the biggest ones that happened to me was that uh, there was a time in my life where I was experiencing nonstop supernatural things, from dreams to aliens to like comets that would like come. But this is the thing, it would happen with me and a friend.
Okay.
So let's say I'd be telling you something and you'd be like, Nati, that's a little bit crazy. Literally, you would leave here and you'd be like, Nati, what the fuck? You just opened up a portal. We just opened up a portal because I just saw it too. To the point where my parents were seeing it. Like at the beginning, they thought I was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
There was a time in my life where my parents thought I was crazy and experiencing like all of these things by myself. And then they started to experience it too. And so Cartagena was always like a place, like a plane where I was experiencing those things the most. But I would say like one of the craziest stories in Cartagena was literally with an Afro-Caribbean girl. So I used to go to Cartagena every summer. And one summer I decided to go with my best friend. And my grandma gave us like an apartment. And it was like the apartment era un desastre. Like it was the most rumbera apartment ever. We were like 16 with our own apartment, doing whatever the heck we wanted in Cartagena, just partying, just so much fun. And there was one night where we were walking in La Marea
Mm-hmm.
from Castillo to Boca Grande, and we were walking through it, and I saw someone walking towards us, towards the end. You know, like it's one long street, right? I have the water on my right side and the street on my left side.
Yeah.
And I see this girl walking towards me, and me and my cousin were just talking, blah, 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 blah. And out of nowhere, it was like, it turned into a portal. The road, it was like everything disappeared all around us. And this girl started to glide towards us. She just lifted from the air. She had long braids. And she had like, you know, those fishnet shirts that you wear to the beach? And she had a pink bikini. And out of nowhere, she's like, goes from gliding really slowly to she's right in front of my face. And she's like, and she comes up to my face, and she like, it was as if she tried to get inside of me.
Mm-hmm.
And she ends up getting in front of my cousin's face. And we just kept walking. And when I look to my left, I see a taxi driver with a man next to him with a gun pointed at him. And I see a guy in the middle of like the pavement, and he's screaming at this girl, I'm guessing. And he's like calling her the most disgusting words ever. And he's like, that's why I killed you. That's why you're like, it was such a weird experience. It was like a break in the Matrix. That's what it felt like. It felt like she was already crossed over.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's because in that moment when she came up to me, I felt everything that she felt. But this is a really interesting part. That morning, my cousin, my best friend, she had woken up and she had said that she had a dream that there was a girl who had died in her arms. And so in that moment when the girl came up to us, it was really weird because we didn't even talk. It was like we just kept walking. We just kept walking and walking and walking. And we didn't say anything to each other. We were like hypnotized. It was the weirdest thing. And out of nowhere, my cousin falls to the floor. And she's like, I felt the instinct to run home. That's all I felt like. I felt like I didn't need to talk about it. I just needed to run home. And she falls to the floor and she's like, we need to save her. We need to go back. And she starts chasing her. I grab her by the hair and I'm like, what are you doing? We need to go home. Like, it's like 3:00 in the morning, girl. Like, we need to go now. Like, that was really scary. And she tells me, she's like, Nati, that's the girl who I saw in my dream last night, who died in my arms. So I'm convinced that it was a break. in the Matrix where this person was crossing over, and what she tried to do was that she tried to jump inside of one of us. And if that ever happens to someone, I think that there's moments where you see people crossing, right, through timelines. And in those moments, that's why a lot of like the shapeshifters are a thing, right? It's like when you hear somebody call your name, let's say you're walking down the street and someone says, Jamie, you never look back. You don't look back. Like if you keep hearing it, especially, right? Shapeshifters are very dangerous, right? You can't be playing around with, and I think that these tales, even when we look at, duendes, when we look at, right, all those little things, our grandmothers who used to tell us these stories, or even the nannies, right? I don't know if in Colombia you grew up, like the nannies would tell you like the craziest stories, like they all come from a lot of truth, right? They've been passed down, but why have we been so ripped away from believing? It's because of the fear. That's why religion becomes such a safe haven for people, because they've seen something so horrible in their life that they're so afraid, not realizing that that's actually your superpower. The visions that you're experiencing are for a reason. You don't need to run away. They're all coming from a lot of truth.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's my story time with that.
And it's crazy because when you were saying that, the little light started flickering, especially when you were saying the woman was like up in your, like,
her breath was like,
yeah. The light started flickering and I was like, wait, like I saw it from the side and I was like, wait, hold on.
Well, I don't like to talk, it's crazy. I don't ever really talk about the little people.
The little people?
Los Lucky Charms. Lucky Charms. Have you ever experienced supernatural stuff?
Yes.
Tell me.
But not duendes.
No?
No. So, I feel like Colombia is filled with...
I was in Colombia too.
Yes. Well, I grew up there, so all of my crazy stories will always come from there. And just how you were saying, everyone's always going to tell you a crazy story. And every time I go to Colombia or like living there, you realize like so many supernatural, so that's what it's called, supernatural things happen, like abnormal things happen. And here I've never experienced something like that. But there, we lived in this house. We don't know what happened. And it would get very scary. So one day we heard someone playing the pool. And when we went, everything was already like, it had the cover, everything was put away before we all went to sleep. And when we heard someone playing pool, we went down and everything was scattered. And another night, we were by ourselves with my mom and her sister. And we heard like the doors, because it was a pretty big house. So the doors on the other end of the house, they were opening and getting slammed. So we were all terrified. We never found out what it was. We would just hide all together collectively in one room. But it was like little minor things like that. It wasn't as crazy as yours, but the stories that we would hear would be like in La Finca. And I used to hate when my parents would want to go to La Finca and sleep over. No, like
Every
do
time
not.
there's something there.
But
and
they tell you about La Mano Peluda. La Mano Peluda. La Llorona. And all of that in a way traumatized me too, because I felt like there was a point in my life where I just started hearing it in my head, because so many people would just say it and they experienced it. But thankfully, I never experienced the little ones. Never.
I'm surprised I even talked about it. I don't like talking about it because it's like, but I think that even through those stories, sometimes I remember when I would experience all those things, I felt a lot of shame for experiencing those things.
Why?
I think because it was just, maybe it was the dark side. And you know how Catholics are and Christians are, like they're just,
and they don't believe.
they don't believe because they're scared.
Yeah.
I think I was only scared because they were shaming me for it. I wasn't really actually scared. I was always like, wait, like I've never seen that creature or that entity or that before. Like, ooh, what is that? And the interesting part was that they never were actually doing anything scary per se, right? There was never anything that was like they were trying to harm or, right? I used to experience a lot of the shadow man.
Shadow, yeah. I've experienced that a lot
Yeah?
too. The shadows, but I usually see either black or white shadows. And I go based on how they make me feel.
Mm-hmm.
If I feel like I'm comfortable and I don't feel scared, then I know it's one of my angels looking at me or just guarding me.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's one of the dark shadows and I get scared, I usually just run and tell my parents and I'm like, something's up.
Yeah, I think like I think I've learned so much at like how to open and close spaces that now I just kind of like, all right, it's time for you to go home. Like, thanks for coming by, but show's over, But I'm happy that I got to a point where I was able to find those safe spaces to help me kind of really realize that those were actually gifts. But growing up in a Hispanic household, there was so much shame when it came to seeing the supernatural and experiencing that. What other areas do you think that like you've experienced shame?
My weight.
Oh yeah.
When I was younger, my weight.
Girl, are me and Jamie the same person right now? Because no, that's so crazy. That is just insane.
My weight, yeah. It was ever since I was a child. And the craziest part, like,
I would do anything to be that snatched again. Like, I was looking so good. Like, do you feel the same? Because I'm like, damn, I was looking good. Like,
and I felt horrible. Like, I felt like I was like overweight and all of this. And it's like, it was all a mental thing.
It was because they were telling me that
I was overweight, but I was never, I was overweight. There was a period that I was overweight, but there was a period of my life that I wasn't.
Yeah.
And I used to weigh 120 pounds and I was still told that I was overweight. And I look at myself back then and I'm like, I never again want to look like that. I look sick. I look like something's wrong with me. You could see my bones.
Wow.
And growing up, I ate my emotions. And my parents would get me into these strict diets. They would cut off carbs. Like, one of my favorite things back then was rice. And ever since that trauma, I don't eat rice like that. Like, I don't crave it. I don't want it. Keep it away from me. And I had the diets. Then it was the working out. I had an instructor. Then I had ballet, karate, soccer, swimming, rollerblading. You name it, I did it all.
Yeah.
And there were moments where I felt certain family members felt ashamed of my weight. And they wouldn't show me off. Or they'll be like, escóndete ese estómago, colócate una ropa más, like loose clothes, don't wear tight clothes. Like, why are you wearing tight clothes? And I would always feel ashamed, When I came here to the United States, I started getting bullied in school.
How old were you when you moved over here?
8. So I started getting bullied and I started getting called well. And I remember around that time, I started developing a crush for a little kid. And they didn't like me because of my weight. And I was told by multiple guys, like kids back then, that I had a pretty face, but an ugly body. And mind you, around this time, I'm 10. I remember I saw every little girl had a boyfriend, their first kiss, and I'm like, where's mine?
Where's my Prince Charm? Where's my prince?
And by the way, now They're hideous.
Uh-huh.
Hideous. I'm like, I wouldn't even stare twice.
Hey, I know. It's always like that.
Yes, and I freaking... That's when my parents... Well, my dad decided to get a gastric bypass around the age of 11. Everything went well for him, and he spoke to his doctor, asked if I could get the gastric bypass. The doctor said yes. And they asked me if I wanted the surgery. I remember with no hesitation, I'm like, yeah, like, let's pack our bags.
How old were you?
I was 11. I was like, let's pack our bags and let's leave tomorrow. And literally that same week, my parents spoke to my teachers, the principal. They gave me the green light, and I went to Colombia, and I stayed there for 2 months. And I did the gastric bypass. Mm-hmm.
At 11 years old, you
At
got
11.
gastric bypass surgery.
Yes. And it was around my late 11th, and I turned 12 in Colombia after my gastric bypass. My parents now say, like, that was something crazy, and I'm like, no, I'm actually grateful.
You're great. I mean, I get it, but, you know, thinking about it now, you know, and you don't have children right now, but in the future, let's say your daughter's going through something similar, do you think that you would offer that to her? Is that something that you think that was a good move? I mean, you're grateful for it now. Everything happens for a reason. But is that something that you think you would offer your 11-year-old daughter?
I wouldn't offer it. But if they were to ask me, yes, I would do it.
At 11 years old?
At 11 years old.
What do you guys think? Drop in the comments. That one's a tricky one. That was a tricky one. I mean, it's a baby.
Yes, but at the same time, the way that I see it is health-wise. I was short. I'm 4'11" now. Back then, I'm guessing I was like 4'5". I weigh...
So what was that process like?
The gastric bypass?
Yeah, like at 11 years old, like you don't even know how your body is like works, you know?
It was painful. It was very painful. But I was happy. Like when I woke up,
I'll be snatched tomorrow.
when I woke up, there was nothing that stopped me. Like the doctor was even shocked. He's like, why aren't you like crying in pain? He thought I was going to be like crying in pain. I was his first ever child. And he thought I was going to be throwing tantrums because they kept me in the hospital for a week. And I was walking, I was chatting up. I was like, so when do I get to eat? When do I get to drink water? I was watching my cartoons. Like, it was like nothing. I was so excited. I was so happy that even though it was painful, I still ignored the pain. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's super interesting.
A lot of people usually think that, well, there was someone that basically said that my parents forced me. My parents did not force me.
They asked me.
They just asked me, do you want it? Like, think about it. But I was getting bullied so much, and I had gone through so much, and like so much rejection from my family members as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, certain family members, that I was just desperate at that point, and nothing was working. There was like, I had already done every single diet. I had done every single workout, and I still wouldn't lose weight. I would gain more and more weight. And back then, I didn't know that I was eating my feelings away.
Mm-hmm.
But now I know.
You know what it makes me think of? You know, children that undergo like transgender surgery. That's what that makes me think too. It's like, that's why I think it's such a intimate conversation. It doesn't even matter what anybody thinks. It doesn't matter what I think. It is, right? It's a similar thing where it's like, that's nobody's business but you and your child's relationship. Because I really do think that there's some children that they just kind of like understand things a little bit.
Yeah.
In a more complex way. And I think, you know, I'm happy though that you still are glad that you underwent that surgery.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes it's the case where maybe it caused more harm. There's not every child is going to feel like that.
Right.
But especially we see it in Colombia. There's a lot of children. Like I have so many cousins that like at 13 they got their nose job. At 14 they got a boob job. You know what I'm saying? And you know, for the most part, I think they're like, yeah, I'm glad I did. But there's cases where people are like, no, like I was a child. I didn't even know that that's what I really wanted, right?
But I
Super
feel like
interesting.
when you grow up in Colombia, your mentality is way different than here.
Yeah.
We're way more advanced mentally over there. You grow up earlier. You know, here we graduate at the age of 18. Over there, you graduate at the age of 16. And it's way different. Back then, even though I was 11, I didn't have the mindset that a lot of kids here in the United States had. I already knew, I understood. And I was already prepared for it. I knew that I wanted it, and I knew that I didn't want to get diabetes because at the moment I was also pre-diabetic, and I understood all of that.
You were 11, you said?
11, yeah. I was pre-diabetic, I like borderline, and I didn't want to have diabetes. I didn't want to feel the way that I felt, so I said
And
yes.
thankfully you had a good support system.
For sure, for sure.
You know?
And the thing is, by the
Girl,
way,
if you would have had TikTok back then, that would have been
viral.
that would have talk about viral, right? Like,
Yeah. Every time I tell
you
people,
would have been
everyone's
my
shocked.
parents would have been canceled. I'm just letting you know right now. This is a safe space here, but
Well,
they would have been.
For sure. They would have been canceled. I'd be like, no, you guys don't get it.
You're like, I wanted this, I swear.
Yeah. At the hospital, walking from end to end.
Okay, so I feel like going into those are like the typical things that a Hispanic girl will deal with at the ripe age of 11. What would you say is the most like stereotypical thing that a Latina woman has to endure in this world at such a young age?
At such a young age.
Well, yeah, wait.
But-
You're
Wait, yeah.
getting married.
School, I dropped out. So that was huge. It was like I was a failure, the black sheep of the household because I dropped out. Then you have the whole marriage concept, having kids, religion-wise, choosing which religion I wanted to be in. Other things, what could be?
Yeah, no, those are.
One of the major things, making sure that you find someone because at the age of 30, no man's going to want you.
And make sure you get a rich man.
Oh, yeah.
Que te va a mantener.
With a good last name, a good title.
Even if he cheats on you.
Oh, yeah, you have to tolerate the cheating. You have to make sure that you're a good housewife, that you maintain him, that you feed him, but you also work. And you feed your children too. That's the thing. And with me is whenever I get married, it's a two-way street. I cook, you clean, or the other way. But it's not going to be I do everything and you do nothing.
It's 100. We're each given 100%.
Yeah.
Of the way. When you're up, I'm up. When it's like it's a duality. I think our generation has a better understanding of all that, which is really beautiful. Okay, I ask everybody this question: what makes your soul feel rich?
Loving myself, being selfish. That's what makes my soul rich. I feel like a lot of people, when it comes to that, they think that you being selfish is you not caring about others. But you can't really take care of others if you are not taking care of yourself. So if I had to choose, it would just be loving myself, taking care of myself to be able to love others.
It's so true. That is so on point. When we take care of ourselves, by you being selfish, you become selfless. When you take time, that's why like even people who are like afraid to take risks, invest in the program, like put themselves out there online, showcasing themselves. Like imagine if you lived the rest of your days being like, no, I'm shy. Like how filling is it for you? I can imagine like you were telling me like you dedicate your weekends to just creating content.
Yeah.
You enjoy that flow state. You enjoy that process. Like when you have those mental blockages, it's because you're not enjoying the process of it, right?
Yeah.
Instead of just being like, oh, snap, like, I'm just going to go have fun. Like, even we were talking before you got here, And you were like, Nathy, Jamie was going into her rabbit hole. She's like, I'm kind of like going through my little rabbit hole right now. And I'm like, girl, we're just going to come and chat,
Talk.
chill, how we always used to talk. A bunch of
But I'm the type of
pero-
person that I overthink, I overanalyze every situation. Like the conversations that I have, I analyze them after I leave. And I'm like, well, did I speak well? Did I say things right? And when I feel like I have that fog, that mental fog, I realize that I speak without thinking. And so that at times makes me nervous because I'm like, okay, like I need to snap out of it and think what I'm saying. And I have to actually take my time.
But I think that that's also part of being in this process. We're talking about like the influence, right? That you're walking people through. Like you're, as an influencer, the word sounds super cliche, right? It's like, oh, you're an influencer. No, but as an influencer, you're saying, I'm going to go first. I don't know how the heck to do this, but I'm going to try out this skincare product. Just use an example. I'm going to try out this new cream. I'm going first. I'm not saying that the cream is amazing. I'm going to give you my reaction. I will let you know how the cream is. If you say in that moment, oh, the cream feels so nice. Oh, you're experiencing it. You don't have to have the answers in that moment.
Yeah.
When does it feel fake when an influencer's like, I'm trying out this cream. Oh my God, it changed my life. That sounds inaccurate. That's going to make you feel like, what was that person doing? But as an influencer, as a leader, right, we're just saying, I'm going to go first. I'm not trying to be God. I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm just saying, I'm going to go first. Because you can only take a person as far as you have gone.
Yeah.
So all that you're doing is saying, I'll go first.
And I tried it out and I felt a billion times. And every time I got up and I kept doing it, there were a lot of times where I wanted to give up. Even until today, I've been wanting to give up. And I keep asking myself, is this really my path? Like, is this really the journey that I'm supposed to take? And every time I say that, something pops up. Like, this is your journey. Like, keep having faith. Keep working on it. And one of my biggest blockages was my throat, speaking. And once I started speaking and I started getting comfortable, that's when I started seeing results and I started seeing numbers. And there's a lot of women that when I go live on TikTok have told me that they've been following me for years because I motivate them or I give them some sort of hope. So it's things like that you're like, okay, maybe I am supposed to do this. But a lot of times I do want to give up just like everyone else because I feel embarrassed. Like, what are people going to think about me? What are people saying about me? And anytime I see someone sharing my stories or my reels or posts, I ask myself, like, are you making fun of me or are you admiring me? Not admiring me, but like, what would be the word?
Admiring.
Admiring me.
It's true. I am. But you know what the best part is? That we still are not going to let that stop us from doing the things that we want to do. Because that process of you creating, you actually enjoy it.
Yeah. And editing, I love editing.
I'm going to have to pay you to do the editing. Me and Johnny are going to have to give you. Yeah, that's a whole other conversation because I think it's really cool. Bueno, Jamie, where can people find you?
I have a couple platforms. So the first one, my personal, is Jamie Mejía with an extra A on Instagram. On TikTok is Jamie Mej, M-E-J. And then you can find me in Diaries of a Healing Latina, both on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube.
Woo. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It was so nice catching up with you and doing like these little check-ins. And it's so beautiful to see you creating and walking people through it. May God continue to illuminate you on the path that you're on. Thank you for being accessible to people and showcasing the truth, the ugly, the beautiful, the painful parts and the really glamorous parts, because it's not easy to be vulnerable and put yourself out there. So I'm super proud of you from going into our little corners where you would come and cry to me and be like, Nathy, I think I'm getting fired.
You'd be like, you're not getting fired, Jamie. Relax.
You're like, no, but I really messed up. From going to that to literally doing everything that you're doing and helping so many girls, like you just said, like the girls who are in your comment section, like you helped me. I am so proud of you. I was proud of you then, and I'm proud of you now.
Thank you. And I'm proud of you doing all of this. You know, people don't think that they need it, but they do. And I think it's very important. And during doing the aura reading, the Reiki alignment and all of that works. And I feel like not a lot of people know about that or really understand it, but it's a true necessity because sometimes you really need to know what's blocking you to open your mindset and open your eyes on what path you should take in life.
Thank you.
What you need to heal too.
Yes. Ay, bueno, mi Jamie, I love you so much, and may we continue to help people and work on ourselves.